Welcome to the International Conference on Agrarian Change. The session you are about to attend is titled Session 2B, Commercialization of Farming. On behalf of the organizing committee of the conference, I am pleased to invite Shinu Varkey to chair this session and V. Surjit as a discussant.
Good evening, everyone. Very warm welcome to all of you to this session on commercialization of farming as part of the International Conference on Agrarian Change 2025, organized by the Foundation for Agrarian Studies. It is indeed a privilege for me to chair this session, which brings together a remarkable set of papers exploring different dimensions of agrarian transformation in India. This conference, as outlined by the Foundation, focuses on understanding the productive forces and relations of production in the countryside, the role of science and technology, and the conditions shaping the lives and livelihoods of the rural population. Within that broad canvas, our session turns a spotlight on one of the most dynamic and contentious processes that is shaping Indian agriculture today: the commercialization of farming. Commercialization, as we know, has been both an opportunity and a challenge. It has linked agriculture to markets, value chains, and global capital. But it has also transformed class relations, patterns of accumulation, and the ecological and social fabric of rural life. It reshapes who controls production, how profits are distributed, and how risks are borne, especially by the small and marginal farmers. The papers in this session engage with this complex reality through diverse empirical and conceptual lenses. There are 5 papers in this session, out of which Akshay Subhashrao Deshmukh and Pramod Kumar examine the determinants of farmers' participation in grape value chains through farmer-producer organizations using a new institutional economics approach. Kunal Munjal's study of commercialization of sugarcane in Uttar Pradesh situates the production dynamics within a political economy framework, highlighting the corporatization of industry, the regulatory role of the state, and the differentiated outcomes for producers. Rachit Tiwari's paper critically examines the appropriation of community-managed, zero-budget, and sustainable agroecological transition in Andhra Pradesh. Sejuti Das Gupta and others explore the agrarian transformation in India, focusing on the new realities and the subjectivities in high-value crops. Ambika Subhash's paper, From Enclosure to Illegality, Biotechnology in India's Cotton Capitalism, examines the politics of biotechnology in India's cotton production. Taken together, these papers connect the institutional, technological, and political economy dimensions of commercialization in Indian agriculture. They remind us that commercialization is not merely an economic process, but a social and political transformation that redefines relations between capital and labor, the state and the peasantry, and science and society. I believe our discussion today will help illuminate these intersections and offer critical perspectives on the trajectory of agrarian change in India. Let me just outline the session plan right away. We have about 1.5 hours, out of which for these opening remarks, I believe I've taken 4 or 5 minutes. Next, we shall have our presentations. We have 5 presentations, as I've already mentioned. I suppose we can allocate 10 minutes for each presentation. Is that okay? 10 minutes for each presentation. That would make the whole presentations for about 50 minutes, which shall be followed by an integrated remarks by our discussant, Dr. V. Surjit. He would also take about 5 to 10 minutes for his remarks. Thereafter, we shall open up the session for Q&A. Finally, we shall conclude with the closing remark. So I now call upon the first presenter, Akshay Subhashrao Deshmukh and Pramod Kumar. They will be presenting on determinants determinants of farmers' participation in the grape value chain through farmer-producer organizations in India, and new institutional economics approach. Present this, please. Thank you.
So, good evening to all of you. So, I am Akshay, as I introduced by the chair. Today, we are talking about what factors influencing farmers to participate in value chain and through the farmer-producer organization. The two themes both are very unique in Indian context for last decades. Because the farmer-producer organizations policy and formation introduced 2019 by Government of India to having a 10,000 FPO across the state, and as 2026 was the target and all 10,000 farmers are registered. So this is not evaluation of all the farmer producers organizations, but we have in Maharashtra specifically we studied around 10 to 15 FPOs, and then we selected 4 to 5 for our purposefully to see how FPOs are involved in the grape value chain through the minimum establishment of the FPO should be 3 years and having 100-member farmer as a member. So, as I explained the Indian context, why FPO is required, as we know that our Indian farming mostly divided it amongst the marginal and small in context of the land size. 86% belongs to only marginal and small. So for that, the economies of scale, bargaining power, and then of course, the land size is small, so having a studies the different contexts, whether the productivities have a decline or increase, and then with that, the access to affordable and timely credit, and premium prices for fruits and vegetables, which are oftenly missing and seeing through the context of tomato, onion. Here we are specifically dealing with the grapes. Even grapes, as we have seen, farmers suffering through a lot of prices. But here we are dealing with the grape, not only a table grape, but also involves in the resins, and then export, and then dry fruits. So with this high horticulture like other, we have the quality standard and post-harvesting, which are very much important for this, important for the grape. So which farmer producer are doing very important role in infrastructure, particularly in Maharashtra and Karnataka. So India is the 7th largest grape producer in the world. You can understand the scalability of and the role of the export. And then if you look at that, the value chain, particularly in the grape, which constitutes 77% of the production alone by the Maharashtra, and then second around 20%, 15 to 20 Karnataka, and other 5% less than 2 to 3 states like Tamil Nadu and Andhra, and some northeastern. So if you look at the value chain, amongst that 20% out of 100, 20% goes to the only dry fruits, wine is only processing 2%, and juice concentrate, which are very less compared to the global context, which is very vice versa in context of India. So as I mentioned about this, as time is very limited, I will go to the important findings. So as this also I mentioned about our studies dealing with what makes to join the FPO and their impact, whether it is positive, negative on the joining. Oh, excuse me. Sorry, actually. Yeah, you come next. Next, okay, so. So let's see this area production productivity of grape sector in India. After the 2009 to 15, there was a very climatic shocks for the grape sector, even rejections in the export, which makes the grape industry like Grape in Maharashtra and other grape association, which has opened door to having a standard quality rejection consignment and climatic shock, how to overcome by this. And after 2009 to 15, these shocks has cried the farmer, and many farmer was in such a debt because it's such a high investment crop, which is 1 acre loss is equal to around 2 to 3 lakh cost will come each farmer. So So here what we are talking about the new institutional economics, where we have referred the calculated, the transaction cost approach, the information asymmetry often missing in the Indian pharma context. Then collective action theory, how APOs are making collectively input and output market, and institutional change. Can APO are the institutional change for the smallholder, specifically small marginal farmer? So this is our concepts that how APO are helping farmers to join the network amongst the farm community, and then transaction cost, which we have calculated for each farmer, how much they are paying if they want to sell their product, and then governance, what services they are providing, what kind of support are given by the APO, and how this high value market is approached by the APO through technology adoption like precision farming and then micro irrigation, which are very important for this crop. So I will, some of the important literature to factor influencing the participant in the joining as a APO or as a part of the grape value chain. Education, training among the most of the literature showing the significant, definitely as a high value crop which require very timely information to have knowledge about the grape from production to the output market. Then this is a very labor intensive crop which household labor as well as the labor from the outside of the family are required to do the pruning and harvesting from time to time. So land holding size, gender dimension, these are the major socio-economic and other institutional factors which are giving a perspective for joining and making the more inclusive of the joining APO for the farming community. So some of the important study in Indian context as a refer by showing the, this is not only about the fruits and horticulture other, but this also relate to the so this is not just about the grape, it's also in talk about the other crops which are very important in terms of fruits. So here how our study is giving contributions in terms of value addition to the existing knowledge. So new institutional framework through calculating transaction cost. We also capture the value chain through APO, and studies talk about more integrating socio-economic and institutional analysis, which compare the not only the member farmers within the APO, but also we calculated the similar villages non-member, which are very significant. So we have selected 2 districts from Maharashtra. Nashik is known for export and Sangli for the resin. So we have selected
will become more legible in the program. As Sullivan argues, such practices constitute the financialization of nature when ecological processes, soil fertility, biodiversity, carbon cycles are reframed as calculatable assets within global markets. This contradiction is also shown by something called the green fix, where the process by which ecological crises are rendered investable through financial instruments that promise both environmental repair and capital accumulation. So now FPOs and other farming-based companies are going to commercialize the natural farming produced, which will be exported because they have to pay the loan amount back to the investors. So now, when the farmer of Andhra Pradesh is producing food, it will be given first to the people who can pay more, who are in the West, not of the people of the Andhra Pradesh and the people of the country, which is also very, very ironical and paradoxical, because I mean, the idea of food sovereignty is that everyone should get chemical-free food, and if people of Andhra Pradesh are producing it, it should be the people of Andhra Pradesh first who should get this chemical-free food. So this is how I situate the zero budget paradox in this program. Now, when it comes to the sustainability side of it, it is not done yet, but I was working from the office, and I have a lot of gossips to share, which I won't. I will share only the things which I can prove through theory and my observations. So what I see there is something which is recently has been introduced through carbon markets and the labor and the many environmental benefits that that these natural farming fields are producing is getting quantified in terms of ecological benefits and then packaged in a tradable unit like a carbon credit and then sold it to global markets to offset pollution. And here I see a very big paradox of sustainability. So the introduction of carbon credits into natural farming fundamentally alters the moral and ecological meaning of sustainability. When farmers are paid to offset emissions generated elsewhere, the practice of ecological care is no longer valued for its intrinsic community or environmental significance that it offers. And this also is a kind of a dynamic that is constituted from some kind of climate colonialism, where the ecological labor of people working in farms in Andhra Pradesh is paid. The benefit is directly going to people, those who are consuming more and also polluting more environment. People sitting in the West and in the West and also in the Middle East as well now. So most of the money that is, so this is also something that I would like to mention. The profit that is generated from these carbon credits is often stuck and don't reach to the actual beneficiaries, the farmer. We can imagine in a country where a farmer does not get proper value of its crop, something that is immaterial. We can imagine how are they going to get the amount of carbon credit into their account. It's something that has not been seen yet in a very efficient way. So while spending my time with farmers and talking to them about natural farming, chemical farming, I have listed some of the key concerns and challenges that farmers face when they are just trying to make a proper decision that works for them, for their family. And what they say about natural farming is that they need support during the transition period. For 3-4 years, you have to compromise with declining fertility. And this is kind of privilege for some farmers who can afford to actually pay for that declined fertility for 2 to 3 years. And many farmers, those who cannot, they need some kind of support in this. And also, it's not bad to accept that zero budget is actually an unrealistic thing, and we should add the amount that a farmer is spending. For example, even if you want to put Jeevamritam and there are different naturally produced materials that you can add in the farming, you have to accept it that these things also have a cost, and you can also add it in the main calculations and maybe help farmers in that. And when it comes to institutional and policy contradictions, one is that the tenant farmers lack land security. For example, if a tenant farmer who is doing this natural farming on someone else's field, they want to make sure that this land is theirs and it will not get transferred if they actually bear that loss in the transition period, which means land reforms and right to land becomes the central thing. If a farmer is owning a land, they will be in a position to practice these kind of things in a much better way. And at the same time, many people were talking that, okay, just 2 minutes, yeah. Many people were talking that they still get subsidized chemical inputs, which is also a bit contradictory for them. So they also see this subsidy getting transferred to natural farming units that they can get from Raitu Bharosa Kendras. And then the idea of champion farmers that they have been talking a lot, which also creates some kind of exclusion and divide. For example, if you're celebrating one farmer in a way that it alienates other people, seeing that someone has become a state person, and there is a lot of skepticism that builds up with it. And then, yeah, the last point is about how international buyers are not important when we compare to the local autonomy. So the different vision was possible, which could be through devolving power to local democratic bodies. Every village has their own local bodies, and we can practice these things through them. Land right to land, and we can provide direct support to farmers, redirect subsidies to from chemical to bio inputs, and build more local food systems, not export markets. So in the end, APCNF is also an achievement because they have done a lot of things, but also a warning. It demonstrates how even the most progressive sounding sustainability initiatives can be recoded by the discourse of finance. This story also tells us how capital's reach extends not only through markets, but through meanings of how community can become a management category, how zero budget a physical architecture, and sustainability a speculative asset. So for agrarian political economy, the lesson is clear that the future of agriculture will be shaped less by new technologies of production than by new technologies of finance. And I mean, this is something that I've learned from there and wanted to share with everyone. Thanks.
Thank you, Rachit. I know it is a dirty work interfering with the presentation in between, but I can't help. Thank you so much for that presentation. Our next presenters are Sejuti Das Gupta, Ishita Mehrotra, Chandrani Datta, and Aparajay Kumar. They'll be presenting on agrarian transformations in India, new realities and subjectivities in high-value crops.
While they're setting it up, I just wanted to say thank you so much. I'm just feeling so happy because I'm here 12 years apart, and the last time I was here, I was a PhD student. So yeah, and I have my teachers, my colleagues, people I have worked with, junior colleagues, so it just really feels good. So the 4 people who are on the list, who are all part of this project, are unfortunately not physically present here. But to give a brief discussion, we are a team of 1 geographer, 1 economist, 1 who studies labor, and 1 who studies capital. So the 4 of us, therefore, have 4 different entry points to study high-value crops. And there's some things on which we agree and some things on which we still don't agree, but we will see how that goes. So 3 reasons to study high-value crops, which includes floriculture, horticulture, and organic crops, including things like bonsai. These are some data to see that the National Horticultural Plan has been in effect since 2000, and there has been serious encouragement from states to kind of push for more of this kind of second wave of commercialization. Not cotton, not coffee, but more flowers and more capsicums and more broccolis. And there is also, towards the end of my PhD fieldwork, I started observing these small farmhouses and nurseries which were coming up. I'm sure many of us have observed them. And I was very intrigued by what they were doing at the outskirts of our cities. And as somebody who was interested in agricultural question, I kind of took that forward in the next part. This is a picture of farm to table. A lot of people now talk about it. There are various different ways. It can be for environment. It can be for local food. It is about, growing what we eat. People are more aware about food miles. There are people who come into it because they are worried their children have too much pesticides and fertilizers in their food. So, there are various entry points of why this is an important thing that is kind of on the minds of people who are living in the urban parts of the world, taking control of their food in some way. But it is also true that it is becoming a commercially viable thing, and there are more people who are coming and investing in it and making it into an enterprise. These are pictures from fieldwork. We have worked in 8 states, and I'll share that. These are the 3 big questions that we are pursuing, and you will see shortly that this kind of indicates the 4 disciplines we kind of come from. The first is about the changes we observe in the urban and peri-urban areas, and what does it mean for the reconfiguration of urban spaces. The geographer is interested most in this. The second question is the emerging questions of new relations of production, where we kind of look at both capital and what does this capital look like, where is it coming from, and labor. And from there, we kind of want to conceptualize, as all academics want to, can we come up with a new term to kind of describe it? We are not married to the term. This is just a term that we think works. Maybe it doesn't work, and we are very open to revising it. The methodology is we have done fieldwork in 8 states over a period of 3 years, in north, south, east, west, kind of. And the cities which we aimed to cover were Patna, Raipur, Surat, Bangalore, Thiruvananthapuram, Vattavara, Pune, Mumbai, Delhi, and NCR. The reason is that horticulture is something, and floriculture is something that is really largely consumed in the urban centers of India and also in foreign markets. It's an export crops as well. So therefore, the location cannot be into the rural hinterlands or the very distant remote areas from where it takes 8 to 12 hours to come to the market. So they are really dotting the big highways. So you have some on, for instance, the Bangalore-Mandya highway. You have some on the Raipur-Nagpur highway. So some very important highways of India currently have these farmhouses. We have 55 of those. I wouldn't say they are all uniform data. Initially, we were not as clear about the questions, but by the 6th nursery or so, we were much more consistent. The crops that we have covered are listed here, so on and so forth. Finding from the field. I really like dancing, so wherever I go, I'll have a picture like this. But it is also a realization of just the direction in which India is moving. So this bonsai to the left costs 500,000 rupees, one piece, right? So when for someone who was trained in agrarian political economy, in Marxism, is very deeply thinks about the question of structural inequality. When you see a plant like that, which is, it's not one plant, there are hundreds of those which are being sold, you start to think, what does it mean about the political economy of India? So who is buying it, who is able to buy it, and at what cost are we producing this? Because at the end of the day, land is a constant. So if we devote our land for these kind of things, then, well. So, and you will see these kind of things being grown not just in Bangalore, where this picture is from. It also is there present in Raipur. It's present in other parts of India as well. This is the breakup. You can see the 55 farms. The geographer of the team has very diligently been following the data. This is not really my doing. And there is a big representation of Karnataka and Kerala, because Karnataka was a state that I knew quite well because of my PhD. So we started work from there. And then we kind of moved to the other parts. But the other states kind of are evenly distributed. How long are these farms? About 38 of these 55 farms are 20 years or younger. So at least on the basis of what we saw, we can tell you that this is not something that has been happening for the last 50 years of India's history. This is a relatively new thing, definitely post-globalization, that we are observing a change on the field, where there is a bigger interest in horticulture, floriculture, and organic crops. So in terms of the findings, I just touched upon it, that there is a need to grow these in places or parts of India which are better connected with the big cities. And therefore, whether you see the Surat-Mumbai highway or the Bangalore-Mandya highway, you have these farms, and then NCR, the Haryana highway, you have these farms which are dotting them. And what that means for cities and peri-urban areas is very significant, because in our imagination, as India was supposed to develop, the cities were supposed to become more industrial. And by that, perhaps we meant it would be more about steels, more about cities, more about high rises. But now we have a reality where we are having more farmhouses, more orchards, which could be a good thing. But again, land is constant. And if we are devoting land for these kind of purposes, and in 9 out of 10 cases, most of these owners are people who already have a house and in addition are buying this one, what does it mean for the rest of us? Who are these owners? Again, you can see a breakup. Almost all of them are non-agrarian. They are professionals. They are government employees. They are IT professionals, and, retired professionals, etc. So these are not our traditional farmers who are coming into it. They are people who are coming from services and manufacturing. Really, they are coming into these sectors. Who owns this land? Again, in most of the cases, the land was not originally owned by the people who own the nurseries. They have moved their surplus from these other sectors into agriculture and either bought a piece of land or leased in a piece of land to start the nurseries and orchards, which is also quite unexpected because often when we think about agrarian political economy, the starting point is land. But here the starting point is capital, which is coming from non-agrarian sectors into agriculture. The size of the farm, most of the farms are pretty small, so size of the farm is not an important determinant of success, but in many cases, we saw very, very profitable ventures, and you can imagine if you can sell trees which are worth 5 lakh rupees, you can pretty much make a lot of profit pretty quickly. This is also the split up of what they were growing. There's a lot of technology from warehouses to sprinkler irrigations to greenhouses, and these are really subsidized by the state. This is not entirely the things that the owners are having to spend from their pocket. There's a big state support that they are receiving. How do you characterize these owners? Like I said, we really don't know, but we have called them novo-rich capitalist farmers, novo-rich to indicate that they were not originally farmers and the money did not come from agriculture. It came from somewhere else and it is coming into agriculture. Interestingly, two things. There are women who are owners and there are women who are managers emerging in this subsector. Women who are either wives of themselves were IT professionals or wives of government officials who are now interested in this and have now in a big way become the leaders. And so therefore you see them playing a big role. There are also young graduates who are coming in as managers. The labor story is very interesting too. These laborers are coming from all parts of India, from Assam, West Bengal, Orissa, eastern states mostly. Should I wrap up right now? And all of them are working here as seasonal migrants, but they make about 15,000 to 25,000 rupees. And all morning we've heard about how little money rural wages are making, so therefore there's a drastic increase in income. But when we think about income, we should remind ourselves that the products that they are creating or the crops they are growing are selling for much, much more. So in proportion to what they are making, it's not that significant. Again, you can see the breakup of the migrants, and this is the analysis page. We aimed to understand the urban transformation. There is definitely a big transformation. There's labor which is coming into urban areas, but they're not depeasantizing. They are still farmers, although they work in urban areas. Wages are rising for sure. The women are also coming in, and they often talk about more freedom. But in the long term, what that would mean is something to see. We definitely have petty capitalists who are coming from the non-agrarian sectors into this. They're not big capitalists. They're not the Ambanis who are investing in it. And there is definitely an angle of land speculation because they're sitting on some of the best and most premium lands of India. And this is where I would end it with some thoughts and connected to scholars like Byers and Barbara Harris-White and Ramachandran who have worked on this. So we agree on some of these and disagree on some of them. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sejuti. We now come to the final presentation by Ambika Subhash. She'll be presenting on Seeds of Capital, Seeds of Liberation, biotechnology in Marxist political economy.
So just a quick correction, because I had upgraded my paper and my presentation after the last date. So now I'm gonna focus less on the Marxist economic thought. It was originally a theoretical paper, but then now I have decided to focus a bit more on the fieldwork aspects of it, because I have just returned from 6 months of fieldwork in the Madhya Pradesh cotton growing belt from March this year to September. So I thought it would be timely for the FAS crowd to hear this. So I'm a PhD scholar at JNU's Center for Economic Studies and Planning. And this is a small part of my PhD work, which is on the political economy of agricultural biotechnology, focusing on the case of GM crops, specifically BT cotton in India, since that's the only transgenic crop that has been legalized by the government. So why cotton, you may ask? It's, I think, an apt crop to study technological change, starting from the Green Revolution hybridization period to the post-Green Revolution, what you call the gene revolution or the biotechnology revolution, where transgenics have taken over. And in this landscape, the technological landscape where gene editing is, and other genetic techniques are then taking the place of traditional transgenics like GMOs. So it has been a commercial crop for ages, in the sense, like Indian farmers have been sowing cotton for time immemorial. And even during British rule, it was a crop of extreme commercial interest. And it continues, and India is the second largest cotton producer in the world, and is one of the top cotton exporters. So 2 decades have passed since, BT cotton, which is the first transgenic crop or genetically modified crop, was legalized by the government in 2002. Of late, you might have heard of narratives like suicide seeds that have caused by BT cotton. BT cotton is, extremizing the vulnerabilities that farmers already face, and they are being pushed to, take their own lives. Anyway, so the technology, the trajectory of BT cotton was, it came to be legalized in 2002 because of certain contradictions or certain crises as part of the larger agrarian crisis that we saw in the 1990s, where yields plateaued, there were some ecological problems like pest attacks and so on, which caused scientists and regulators to think of various solutions, and BT cotton sort of came through as a technological fix to fix that crisis. There's an RAS paper that came out in 2015, which very beautifully speaks of the movement of cotton technological trajectory from the early hybrid phase of the 1970s to the BT phase, which is going on now. And they stopped at the 2010 mark, like 2010. They studied 2002 to 2010 as the BT phase, and spoke of how, compared to the late hybrid phase, which was facing a crisis in productivity and so on, BT cotton came to increase productivity, reduce the pesticide cost. Yeah, so BT cotton basically is insect resistant in the sense that it would be resistant to the pink bollworm, and you would not have to spray pesticide on it. So it came with the promise of reduced pesticide costs and use. But this sort of benefits have plateaued in what I call the late BT phase since 2010. The yield benefits have plateaued. In some states, it is actually decreasing. The insecticide cost savings have also plateaued. And there's a huge resurgence of the pink bollworm. In fact, when I went to the field, more than 90% of the farmers told me of how pink bollworm is the main, is the main issue in cotton farming today. almost like 50% of some farmers' harvests are eaten up by the pink bollworm around the end of the cotton season. So farmers are now fed up by the unfulfilled promises of BT cotton, and now they're being forced to move to some illegal herbicide-tolerant, genetically modified cotton seeds, what we usually call HTBT seeds. So herbicide-tolerant BT. So we are still in the BT paradigm, but now we are introducing herbicide tolerance to it. And the main reason being that cotton is very labor-intensive, and of late, in many states, not only the profitability has been going down or plateauing, and in my state of interest, Madhya Pradesh, also you can see how since 2010, the profitability of cotton, which I've calculated from CACP state-wise average data as value of product by C2. So you clearly see how after 2010, there's just a drop, and then across states, a lot of variability in profitability of cotton has been happening. And the ratio of labor cost to the total cultivation cost of cotton has also been increasing over time in many states. There are some exceptions, but in Madhya Pradesh, my state of interest, this has been the case. And insecticide cost as a proportion of total cost has also been, for the first 10 years or so, it's sort of largely followed a declining trend, and after that, not so. So cotton is labor intensive. These are like sowing is done by hand, right? Like you dig a hole, place one single seed into it, cover the soil, repeat, repeat, repeat. And this is done by women mostly, right? And harvesting is also done manually. You have to pick every cotton ball manually. And farmers talk about how after the pink bollworm eats it, or the rains have fallen and the cotton has rotten, and then the pink bollworms are eating it, then it gets even more difficult. It takes even more time consuming to pick what is left of that cotton ball that's rotten and eaten up. And weeding is the largest labor cost component in cotton farming. This is just like a small piece, a small cotton farm being weeded by laborers. These are pickup truck laborers. So they come from the hilly Adivasi villages, and they're mostly women and children. Okay, this was supposed to be a video, but I'll just skip it. So this is not a new phenomenon, what we call these illegal genetically modified seeds in cotton. Even before the government legalized cotton, BT cotton in 2002, farmers were already sowing illegally, multiplying on their own, like smuggling those illegal BT seeds and hybridizing them with the local varieties and producing new BT hybrids and sort of putting their own name brands on it, like amazing names like Lakshmi, Kavach, Virat, right? So like whatever name they wanted, they would put on the pack and sell it. And this has been the case now. I got to see how there are brands like Yugam, Bahubali, Killer, Dhanush, okay? So, and it's locally called 4G or 5G varieties. And farmers do know that this is herbicide tolerant, and it will help them save your labor costs, and yeah. So it's illegal. There are some raids that are happening in Maharashtra, and when I went to Madhya Pradesh, I didn't expect to find these illegal seeds because no news was available of any raids happening and catching these seeds. But in the field, it was very, very prevalent. And farmers boasted about how, Shivraj Singh ki deen hai, hame kuch nahi hoga, right? So nothing will happen because the former chief minister of Madhya Pradesh, who's now the Union Agricultural Minister, has apparently blessed them so that they can continue with their business and nothing will happen to them. There was a lot of corruption alleged. People stopped me from going to the the one final input shop in the village because that is owned by the local BJP politician who is apparently silently helping them continue with the business and so on. So Yeah, it's definitely illegal, and the farmers are also resisting by illegally planting these seeds, like the Shetkari Sangathan in Maharashtra. But there's no large political backing from the center or even from the states, like the earlier BT cotton case in 2002, which got it legalized through the GEAC. So let's just quickly, yeah, this was a study area. What you see in red, it is a bunch of 9 villages across 2 districts. 2 minutes, please. Yeah, and BT cotton was, this illegal HTBT cotton seeds were prevalent in all villages except these 2, which are in the Satpura ranges, and these are like almost 100% tribal villages. Even their cropping pattern was different. They're subsistence farmers. They're like, oh, only big farmers can manage to take the risk of, sowing these seeds. And in many cases, there were spurious seeds, fake seeds that were being claimed to be like herbicide tolerant and so on, also circulating. So some farmers sowed these seeds until about 2001 or 2011 or 2012, until 2021 and 2022, and then they realized that, okay, mostly these are fake seeds, so we don't want anything to do with it. But certain classes of farmers seem to be profiting from these seeds. They were also the sellers and traders of these seeds, and these were the large capitalist farmers of these villages, particularly from the OBC Patidar communities. So it's a disillusionment with BT cotton that's making farmers go to HTBT. And while the sellers are very secretive, the farmers are quite open. They want to speak about the seeds. In fact, they asked me to, go to Delhi and tell the authorities, if I can, to quickly legalize it so that, they can at least now get a receipt with the sale, and, they can approach the courts if fake seeds are sold and so on. But there are also the dissenting voices who said that, oh, these are fake seeds, this doesn't work on our farms, and we won't use it. There's an interesting case of how a farmer said that I won't use it on my land, but in the leased-in land, I will use it because I can then spray a lot of glyphosate herbicide, and the soil will get tired and dead, and it's fine because it's not my land. So farmers are definitely aware of the ecological consequences of these seeds. And apart from the ecological consequence, there's also a labor consequence, because weeding is mainly done by women. And what this does is this, right? The Adivasi woman laborer who's weeding will be replaced by the most probably Adivasi male spray worker, right? So that's glyphosate in the tank, and it will again be a sort of corporatization only, because you are still in that glyphosate-dependent agriculture. Already these many chemicals are used in cotton, and now we imagine what happens if we unleash another to the mix. And this is how an average pesticide sprayer prepares his sprays. There's no protective equipment. His children are around the chemical. It's atrazine, a herbicide that he's preparing. Yeah, so just 1 minute, which is why are farmers using these illegal herbicide-tolerant seeds? It's mainly 2 promises, right? It will save your cultivation costs in labor through replacing the weeding labor that is required, and it also manages the pest problem, the re-resurgence of, so to say, of the pink bollworm. And now farmers have on their own just, in the absence of regulatory decision and the withdrawal of extension services in the villages, they have come up with their solution to it. They are smuggling the seeds from Gujarat and selling it to each other. Now as activists who may be here, you have to decide whether you want to argue for the HTBT regime to continue. Do you want to continue within the BT regime? Or do you ask for a non-BT, non-HTBT, non-HT alternative, right? So my appeal is that, I would want scientists and you all to think whether we have exhausted all other options before actually joining the, legalized HTBT bandwagon. So, yeah, thank you. Thank you for the chair for accommodating. so much. Thank you.
Thank you, Ambika. So we come to the close of the presentations. Now I call upon Dr. V. Surjit for an integrated overview of all the papers together.
Good evening, all, and thank you, Foundation for Agrarian Studies, for giving me an opportunity to read very interesting and intellectually engaging papers, largely focusing on commercialization of agriculture and socioeconomic issues arising out of it, particularly on how these issues affect the agrarian relations. So these studies raises very important questions and give empirical evidences on issues that emerge due to commercialization of farming, which are largely absent in the mainstream development discourse on agrarian transition. And it also brings out the dark faces of very glorified pictures on certain aspects like the AP ecological program, the whole debates on organic products and sort of issues. And to do justice to all the papers, and in the interest of time, I'll not discuss each paper in detail, because if there is time left after question and answer, we can have those discussions. I would like try to understand the broad threads which these papers are on the issues which these papers are discussing and raising. These issues are very important because you don't find space and these arguments in the mainstream discourses on the understanding of commercialization of agriculture and the development trajectories. So we have three papers: Kunal's paper on the sugarcane industry, Rachit Tiwari's paper on the agroecological transition, and the agrarian transition on higher value crops by Sejuti Das Gupta, which I would like to summarize in terms of four important observations which comes out of these papers. It sketches out the pathways through which the global finance enters through the entire sustainability discourse, which we listen of various types and versions, and its implementation through programs like APCNF. So that's one example in which the global finance enters the whole discourse. Kunal's paper on sugarcane industry, largely gives the idea of how corporatization as part of the commercialization utilizes public institutions and public funds to further the agenda of surplus extraction and capital accumulation. There are other questions related to that paper, which largely argues that there is extraction of surplus profit from the sugarcane being invested into other sectors like the real estate and bioenergy aspects. But then the question is it the profit from sugarcane industry going into other sectors or the other way? When you have a huge amounts of funds and programs supported by the public institutions and state on programs like that, which is heavily subsidized, and you have pointed out those issues also. The third important point is there is a weakening of existing democratic institutions like the local bodies or the gram panchayats, cooperatives, and even the self-help groups in the case of APCNF project. There has been a deterioration in the objectives of which these institutions have been designed for, or the issues which these institutions should address. The fourth important point is there represents a case where states negates its own strategies of primary sector development. On the one hand, you say about using scientific techniques and methodologies to understand the issues of declining yields, addressing the yield gap, and on the other hand, you support something like a zero-budget natural farming. So there is a contradiction in which the state negates its own strategies of primary sector development. So there is a contradiction in these parallel approaches by the state. So these are the four important threads which links all these papers. Very interesting papers. The arguments on the issues on commercialization of agriculture, which you don't find in the mainstream discourses. The presentation, the paper by Ambika Subhash. So unfortunately, the paper which you had, which I was asked to discuss was the previous version, where I struggled a lot to understand that. So, but then, in the interest of, in the case of BT cotton, when you say, there has been studies where illegal seeds, the ways in which farmers try to use illegal seeds to address the issues of high cost of seeds, and on the counter how private seed companies tries to prevent this process through some technological interventions. So inventions in the seed technology have been there to address these issues. Maybe a seed scientist in this forum can comment more on that. So those issues remain, and as part of commercialization of the agriculture and the socioeconomics which arise out of it, and then how does it affect the process of enclosures and accumulations? So these are very important questions on how these processes operate, and then how does it impact the peasantry? It is also important, and the paper on farmer producer organization of grapes by Akshay Subhash, which largely focuses on the determinants of which underlines the importance of collectivization, the role of institutional support, and the importance of capacity building of farmers to ensure there is inclusiveness in terms of distribution of benefits or surplus which has been generated. So all these studies on a broader perspective underlines the importance of analyzing the ongoing commercialization of agriculture and agrarian transitions with reference to the agrarian questions which is outlined in the development discourse. So I'll stop with this, and then if there is more time, we can have discussions on the specific paper. Thank you very much.
We are off time. We have already, surpassed the allowed time. Nevertheless, if you permit, we shall continue for another 5 minutes. Yes, just 5 minutes. We shall take 2 or 3 questions at the most, and together the authors would address.
So I have a query to the person who presented on value chain of grape, high value crops or something. Yeah, it is about you compared between grapes and raisins and gave the per kg prices and all. Whether the conversion ratio of grapes to raisins have been taken into account. Yeah, but your presentation doesn't give that impression.
We have taken care of that. Just we have show the prices for each value chain additions, whether the grape export and raisins, and then whether farmers are giving for wine. Thank you.
Thank you. I have only two questions. One to Rachit. Rachit, I think you were making this point that it is basically the managerialization and the corporatization and financialization of the erstwhile self-help group-based intervention that appeared to create problems in the Andhra experiment later. But I think you missed a very fundamental point, which is that technology is a bogus technology, right? I mean, zero-budget natural farming is an absolute nonsense, right? It contributes zero to increase yields. All studies on zero-budget natural farming shows a 30% decline in yields. And all such studies have been covered up by the government. They have not been published. Right? So it is irrelevant whether it was under self-help groups or it was under financialized systems. It would have been a disaster either way. Right? That's my point. The other point I wanted to make, Ambika, you would have expected this, but no technology, no seed variety can ever be resistant to a pest like pink bollworm forever. Right? Pest evolves, and as more toxins are there's a certain membrane that gets deposited in the insects, this thing which makes it resistant. It's basic science. So when Cry 1 failed, Cry 1 had resistance. So Cry 2 came. Now Cry 3 is there, but Cry 3 cannot handle pink bollworm. So what people are trying is there is something called WIP3, vegetative insecticidal protein. So if you can pyramid a WIP3 protein with old Bolgard 3 or Bolgard 2 Cry 2 protein. So there are different efforts that are taking place. Companies, basically in this case it's private research, unfortunately. We have killed public research in this area. So the key question here is whether we can have a research system that responds to the needs of the farmer inside BT. The key problem, which I wish you had mentioned, was that the complete demise of public agricultural research into BT research. Right? So you need basically BT varieties which are more suited to the rainfed conditions of India, which we do not have. We essentially have promoted only private monopolies that promote BT hybrids, which are only suitable in the well-irrigated parts of black cotton areas, not into the rain-fed parts of dry cotton area. So I think that issue is very important. And to take this forward and say BT cotton is a failure is untrue in my view, because you still have, compared to 2003, productivity is still double, more than double on an average of what it was in 2003. Right? So that is what I wanted to say. Thanks.
Thank you. My question is to Dr. Sejuti. Hi, here. First of all, thank you for this wonderful work that you guys are doing. I just wanted a conceptual clarity. I also work in high-value crops, and in terms of the proprietor, you have made a distinction. Okay, there's a new rich capitalist farmer who is coming from a professional background. But there are also, traditional orchardists in various parts of the country who do horticulture, have been doing it in various historical regions. Will we say that they are also HVCs, or should the traditional horticultural areas, say apple in Himachal, will that not be coming under the paradigm of HVCs? Because this particular thing that you are discussing is being taken up by new sections of people. So just some conceptual clarity of whether the traditional crops, horticulture crops, mango, apple, whatever, do they still fall under HVC, or is it something else?
A very quick question for Kunal. What is driving farmer decision-making about which sugar mills to go to? What makes, are the big mills offering better prices, or is it the package of subsidiary benefits, access to finance, etc.? Is there something that's driving farmers towards the big mills as well, or do they have a range of choices? I'm just wondering about that dynamic. Thank you.
Well, see, my question is to Kunal. This is regarding the sugar industries. whatever was there in the paper, okay, it's fine regarding the crushing and mills cooperative and private sector, this transformation. But I suppose you are all aware, and if not, let me tell you that the sugar crushing season in Uttar Pradesh, about which you are talking about, particularly in Western Uttar Pradesh, it has just started a week back. And the sugar season in India, it has started on 1st of October. So, you know, this primary crushing of this commercial crop, for 1 month primary crushing, it is primary by the crushers. Crushers, they have not vanished. They are there. And let me tell you, you were talking about the Levy Sugars MSP, 31 rupees and like that. The raw jaggery, which is produced in kolus and crushers, its rate right now is above 45 rupees per kg, up to 50 rupees. Sometime what they used to do is when this, this recovery rate is not very good, even in the raw jaggery is produced by mixing this, cheap rate sugars. What is happening to this jaggery, which is produced in means big quantities? Have any idea?
Thank you for both the questions, I think. To answer Marcus' question, what drives farmers going to sugar mills? Each mill has a catchment area of 20 kilometers. So all farmers in all villages that are falling under that 20-kilometer area will have to sell to that one particular sugar mill. Why they won't or may not sell, or why they prefer to sell to the mill instead of the alternative sweetener industry, the prices given by sugar mills are almost 20% higher. The prices are decided by the state government under a law where all sugar mills are legally obliged to pay. The payments payments are supposed to happen within 14 days of the transaction. It may be delayed by 2 to 6 months or 10 months, but it will be assured for sure. And yeah, so it's a form of contract between the mill and the farmer via a cooperative society that is run not by the farmers. That cooperative is state run, like the public bureaucrat of the state level manages it. To answer the question of Pushpendra, yes, crushers are still there. The alternative sweetener industry is still there, but it has been facing a big contraction. It has shrunk from compared to 2 decades ago in the wake of rising sugar mills because no new license were issued. The existing units could not work for the longest time for different reasons because most of the cane was going to the mill and they faced a lack of supply. So earlier most of them were making khansari, in fact, the unrefined crystal sugar. Now they have all switched to jaggery because the market for refined sugar and unrefined crystal sugar has been tilted towards refined sugar. Jaggery is a different product altogether. If you look, it's a sweetener, but it's a different product. Most of the jaggery is going to the local sweets shops. I would say, in my understanding, half of it is going for the local sweet shop, but a big chunk of it is going to local alcohol liquor making regions. I can say this, I won't put it in my paper. When I was in the field, the prices that these crushers and these alternative sweetener industries people were offering were higher than the prices that the sugar mills were offering for one particular year because there was higher demand for jaggery, and that higher demand for jaggery was going all from Uttar Pradesh to 2 states, Gujarat, primarily to 2 states, Gujarat and Bihar, where liquor is banned. It was election season, demand for local liquor was high, jaggery was going there, and that's where so yeah.
To answer your question, at least about the flowers, we were very careful that marigold and those flowers were not counted in high value. And also both in terms of location and in terms of the value that it adds, that it didn't make meaning. But apple perhaps is something that I need to think a little more and tell you, because we did have some apple orchards in the Himachal Pradesh sample. So therefore, I think we did count that.
So, it has been a bit of dismissive behavior towards zero budget natural farming by mainstream scientists, which I don't agree, because I mean, it's something not universally applicable, but there is a small window in which some farmers can gain profit out of it, and this depends on the type of crop that you are cultivating, and the amount of capital, for example, cows you already possess, or also if you can manage how to sell it in good quality, in good prices as well. So I have seen many farmers, talk to them, which have told me that it is possible, but it is definitely within a certain kind of window and some privilege that a farmer can have. Uh, but my criticism towards it was about how government is actually pushing this natural farming thing to marginal farmers, mostly their labor. So natural farming is definitely very labor intensive, and also many women groups who are trying to implement these ideas, and now they are trying to sell it to in the global market in terms of like carbon credits, and also in like the ethical food market thing, which is to which I am very critical. So there is some hope, but it should come from the community itself.
Regarding this organic zero cultivation, in my village area, I asked one farmer. He said that what is organic cultivation? I asked him. He said, if fertilizer sprayed in day, normal agriculture, if fertilizer sprayed in night, that is called zero agriculture.
All right. So to answer Professor Ramkumar, when we say BT hybrids, right? Like India is the only country in the world that legalized BT hybrids. Everywhere else, it's in straight line varieties, which the farmers can multiply. So what we saw as the BT advantage in the early phase, that first 10 years of BT cultivation, scientists are still struggling to know whether it was BT effect or hybrid effect. Okay, but now what the failure of BT cotton, what I call the resurgence of pink bollworm, not me, but there's a lot of literature that speaks about how pink bollworm got resistant to that BT toxin over time. Like anybody who's exposed to a toxin over a long period of time will get resistant to it. Similarly, the worms have gotten resistant to it. So now that is attributable to the BT toxin, is it not? And now the herbicide tolerant BT is simply stacking the IR, the insect resistant trait, with the HT, which is the herbicide tolerant trait. And as far as I understand, the BT aspect of it is still BG2. That is not changing, right? So you're still within that regime, technological regime, where the pink bollworm can still get resistant, right? And then you're adding one more aspect, which is, unleashing glyphosate tolerance onto the cotton plant as well. So then how do you then, put... because farmers also see it as that, right? So the farmer will not use it on his own land, but when he leases in land, he understands that this is not my land. It does not matter how much glyphosate I spray on it, so I'm going to unleash glyphosate on it, because then I don't have to hire any labor for weeding, right? So, but of course we can assume that farmers will also be rational about it when it's their own land. But do we have the systems in place, the legal, the technological, and the systemic, things in place to ensure that that technology will not, devolve into another unmanageable condition like BT cotton did? And for example, like BT cotton needed refugia, that is 10% of the land around the cotton farm should be planted with non-BT. But small and marginal farmers only have 5 cents, 10 cents. Why would they waste so much space around their farm, sowing non-BT, which is with a lesser yield? So India's conditions are fundamentally different from the other technological success stories that we like to talk about, including China. And I hope we keep that in mind as well, while of course, technology must be developed, it must be supported, and it should also be devolved from this sort of centralized sort of, like private companies deciding what to do along with the state, and then them, gathering monopoly rents over it. It should definitely be decentralized, and in that decentralization, maybe the political will also have a role in deciding what regime do we go to next. So, yeah, thank you.
Surely we shall carry on this discussion further. Very interesting, discourses altogether. Just in one word, thank you all, dear presenters, our discussant, V. Surjit, and all the participants for such an enriching discussion at the end. We know that it is a debatable area altogether, we can carry on with that discussion as we proceed ahead. And finally, I conclude by thanking the Foundation for Agrarian Studies for convening such an interesting conference altogether for these sort of discourses. Thank you.